Another story written by, in fact, actually written in the same book by the same author, tells a completely different account of this should say ages of humankind. I don't know why I just put one age up there, the ages of humankind. So you have two creation stories right next to each other in the same book by the same author, who are included because they tell very different, they give different points, okay? Hesiod's going to take us through 5 ages of humankind. Now don't write these all down at once or it'll mess up your notes. And just look at them now. Golden Age, Silver Age, Bronze Age, the Heroic Age, and the Iron Age. We'll start off with the Golden Age. In the Golden Age, Cronus creates human beings. He creates men and women. He makes men and women out of gold. That's why it's called the Golden Age. These humans were said to live among the gods, hung out with the gods. Peace and harmony is all over the place in this time. Humans didn't have to work to feed themselves. The earth didn't have weeds. All the food just grew up, and without even having to work for it, you just go out and there the food is. Humans would live to be very, very, very old, but throughout all their lives they would have a youthful appearance and feel energetic, and then finally when kind of like their time ran out, then these very young people would just go to sleep and die in their sleep. Eventually dies very peacefully. This period ends with when Cronus is overthrown. When he's overthrown. And when Cronus is overthrown, Zeus just destroys all the golden people. Why? Because Cronus made them. He doesn't want to deal with Cronus's human beings, okay? It's kind of like with politics, right? When one party takes control of the White House or the governor or whatever, then there's turnover and all of that, and so that's just how that works, okay? And then Zeus made people out of silver who lived in the Silver Age. The Olympian gods, we'll get to that group, create human beings out of silver. This is from a later writer named Ovid. Then those who have their home on Olympus made a second race of silver, far worse than the one of gold, and unlike it both physically and mentally. A child is brought up by the side of his dear mother for 100 years, playing in the house as a mere baby. But when they grew up and reached the measure of their prime, they lived for only a short time and distress. They could not restrain their wanton arrogance against each other. And they did not want to worship the blessed immortals, that's the gods, or sacrifice to them as is customary and right. Then in his anger, Zeus hid them away because they did not give the blessed gods their due. In other words, Zeus destroys the silver people because of their arrogance. This word hubris is a Greek word that means overwhelming pride, self-promoting pride, arrogance. Not the kind of pride where you're proud of your children or proud of your parents or proud of the job you did at school or something like that, but that kind of pride where you're always inflating yourself and putting yourself forwards, promoting yourself. That word's going to come up quite often. And so the human beings showed disrespect to the gods. They were arrogant, and so Zeus destroyed them. In the next age is the Bronze Age. Now please don't write all this down. This is just to tell you what bronze is. Bronze is made out of copper and tin, and then often has some metals, oftentimes zinc. And then really interesting are these non-metallic substances which strengthen the copper in particular and make the copper harder than ordinary copper. The tin makes it harder, and then sometimes these things are added. This is the interesting one because arsenic is poisonous, you know that. But if you are around it in small amounts, it can affect your nervous system and mental health and all kinds of issues, okay? And we're going to have several stories about insane bronze workers and metal workers because a lot of metal workers were insane. Why? Because they're messing around with arsenic an awful lot. Even if the Greeks didn't recognize the cause, they saw the connection between madness and blacksmithing. And so you have, well, it's going to show up quite often. I just wanted to make sure you knew what bronze was because it's not Actually, the old style of pennies, before they went to copper-coated zinc, but pennies from like the 70s that you find that are that darker color, that's actually bronze. We call it copper, but it's actually bronze. That's the metal that older pennies are made of. Anyway, in the Bronze Age, Zeus himself makes humans. Father Zeus, this is from Ovid again, made another race of mortal men, the third of bronze, the third age, the Bronze Age, of bronze and not at all like the ones of silver. Terrible and mighty because of their spears, they pursued the painful and violent deeds of war. They were terrifying and had dauntless hearts. Great was their might, and unconquerable hands grew upon the strong limbs out of their shoulders. Of bronze were their homes, and they worked with bronze tools. When they had been destroyed by their own hands, they went down into the dark house of chill Hades without leaving a name. In other words, they made tools of war and killed each other off, killed by their own technology. The heroic age is Hesiod's next age, and here's where I say that human beings are oftentimes an afterthought. Hesiod doesn't even give us a creation story. Humans just kind of show up somehow. This is the age of the great heroes, the war with Troy, the Trojan War, which we'll be spending the last maybe 3 weeks of class. Trying to look at the calendar. Anyway, towards the end of class, last 2 or 3 weeks talking about this war. The great heroes. Achilles is one of them, for example. He has another age, the Iron Age, and again, there's no story of the heroes dying off or of a new creation of people. So either the people to show up, or possibly they are descended from the heroic age, and this time is, as you see there, it's a very dark time. During this age, humans live an existence of toil and misery. Children dishonor their parents. Brother fights with brother, and the social contrast between guest and host is forgotten. During this age, might makes right, and bad men use lies to be thought good. At the height of this age, humans no longer feel shame or indignation at wrongdoing. Babies will be born with gray hair, and the gods will have completely forsaken humanity. There will be no help against evil. I would say that's a fairly pessimistic Weltanschauung. Okay. And this is the time that Hesiod says he lives in his self. He looks around, he sees children being disrespectful to their parents, families getting into fights over stupid things. What matters is winning. What matters is having power, and not what you actually do with that power. And there's no help against evil. A dark picture Hesiod paints of the future in his own time, which he sees developing into this future. Like I said, I consider that to be fairly pessimistic. So here are the ages. Just take a look at these here. We started with the golden age, I guess, silver, bronze, iron. These are the metals here. Oh, I guess I gave you the metals on purpose. Gold, silver, bronze. The heroic I kind of lightened up, and then down to the iron. What do you see in this progression from gold to silver, silver to bronze, and bronze to iron? There are two different progressions going on. What do you see? The metals are less precious. Gold to silver to bronze to iron. And then they also get harder. Gold's a very soft metal, especially if you have 24 karat gold, even 18 karat gold. If you have a ring and you bang it, you don't get a dent, okay? Silver is a little harder, but you wouldn't make a sword out of silver because you got in a fight with it and you lose your blade, okay? Bronze, that's pretty good, okay, that's pretty hard. But then iron and eventually steel is pretty strong. The ages become less precious and harder, more difficult. And again, I suggest that that's a pessimistic Weltanschauung going on here. Why the heroic kind of stuck in here? It's kind of like the things get worse and worse and worse, but then there's an uptick in the narrative. Wow, the heroes, and then at least that's one guess there. That's part of the narrative. Things get better, worse and worse and worse. Then nope, down. There's a splash of hope and heroism, but then everything continues to decline.